You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Creep Street podcast.
I cannot believe it. This is so exciting.
This is very exciting. This is something we have been building towards for a long time. And let me just state up front, we're going to be going to some scary places when we do this show. But we're going to be going there together, and we're so happy that you are joining us for this ride. And once again, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. And today we are talking about shadow people.
That's right, shadow people. And so for those of you who may not know, shadow people, this is a phenomena that has been around truly for as long as there has been recorded history.
Ancient.
Yeah, exactly. Totally ancient. But it's currently called shadow people. That's what the term for it. And what shadow people are they are what you might guess, obviously a shadow of a person that is just complete pitch blackness. There is no facial features. There's no depth in there at all. Just blacker than black. And sometimes you can see these people as adults, sometimes children, sometimes elderly. Usually it's a man with a hat, actually, is something that's brought up a lot, but not necessarily always, and we'll get back to that. And they also usually appear in the corner of your eye. So when you turn to see it, sometimes it's not there anymore, or sometimes it is there. And another thing that it's connected to is actually sleep paralysis. Dylan, can you tell the people all about sleep paralysis?
So sleep paralysis is a horrible, horrible experience where basically the long short of it, from what I understand, is basically you're asleep, but your brain becomes somewhat aware that you are asleep, essentially, right. And you cannot. But your motor functions, I don't know if that's the right word, but your physical functions have not quite yet returned. So it's a feeling of paralyzation, essentially.
Right.
And I don't even know if that's a word, but it's this
You're
feeling
paralyzed.
of being paralyzed. And there's a few theories as to why these shadow people are so closely associated with sleep paralysis. And obviously, first and foremost, most people who are skeptical tend to believe that it's something that your brain produces in this moment of fear. It triggers when you feel this feeling of paralysis. You that's the word, paralysis, not paralyzation. It's this, that it triggers this thing in your brain, and it allows you to hallucinate these shadowy figures. But that is obviously the skeptics' point of view. When it comes to the paranormal explanations, it's vast. Absolutely vast.
And just so you guys know, Dylan and I, we are all about approaching everything with a healthy level of skepticism, truly looking at all sides of everything. It's not like we take everything at face value, but at the same time, we also want to have a very open mind,
right?
And understand that there are things that we cannot understand.
Absolutely. The point is, we're also not dicks. Like we love this scary stuff, and we're really fascinated by it. So yeah, this is something incredibly fascinating. So what are some of these paranormal theories as to what these shadow people are?
The big difference between shadow people and then the type of shadow people that some people associate with sleep paralysis, for the most part, this is not a science necessarily, this isn't a fact, but what it seems like is that the shadow people that people experience during sleep paralysis are more negative, maybe even demonic, some people might say. Whereas for the most part, the shadow people that people have claimed to have seen when they're wide awake, they're out and about, those are usually seen to be more neutral or maybe even good, possibly. So it's very interesting, and they're kind of separate, but kind of the same, and they have a lot of overlapping factors.
Right. and what I think is fascinating is it's not just, obviously there's the theory that they are ghosts, that they're demons that they are, even, angelic, benevolent entities. But there's also theories that they are interdimensional beings that are just kind of taking a vacation and just seeing what this world is all about. Now, a theory that kind of is very common and I think makes the most sense is that whether these things are demons or ghosts or interdimensional beings, they are there to feed off your fear. Now, let me state that they're generally considered non-lethal. Like, they aren't there to kill you. What it is they're just getting a little hit.
Right. A little touch of that.
Taking a hit of that fear. It's like your body is a bong, and it's like building up, and then you gotta.
You know what? It's exactly like if your body was a bong.
You are a fear bong.
You're a bong.
Your bodies are fear bongs.
Could you imagine if there were real things called fear bongs?
Fear bongs? Fear bong. That sounds like a great movie.
Just an idea.
But yeah, it's this. They're essentially coming in for just a snack in the middle of the night. They're coming in to essentially refuel, which is fascinating in and of itself.
Right. Very odd.
So weird. And most of the time, obviously, people see these at night, but they have been seen during the day as well.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Right. Exactly. Which is so interesting. And I think that's something that's really important to note and to think about, is that, like, it's so easy to say, like, oh, this is happening because, your brain is in that middle place between sleep and awake. So that's why you're having these hallucinations, blah, blah, blah. And maybe sometimes that is what happens. But it's so interesting to note and to think about the fact that sometimes it happens in so many different circumstances.
Right.
But let's get into the different theories about what they are specifically.
Please.
So we did talk about the interdimensional beings situation, which I think, like you said, is very, very cool. And
yeah.
Does
that mean essentially that they could be humans just from another
like realm or
multiverse of whatever? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Well, it seems like one theory actually is that shadow people are people that are astral projecting, which is kind of a cool
Absolutely.
theory.
And that'll be a topic for a future episode.
Yeah. So just a little teaser about that. Astral projecting is basically kind of like an out-of-body experience type situation where someone of their own volition is able to, in a way, leave their body, and then their spirit goes somewhere else and experiences something. For example, if you watch The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, it happens all the time there. But the theory with this is a little different. It's that since your spirit or your soul is leaving your body, and your body, the human body, is still actually intact and alive somewhere, when the person is astral projecting, it doesn't appear as their full body as it might appear. Instead, it's just like this black shadow essentially of them, and that's what you are able to see. And on the same vein of that, actually, some people claim or believe that these shadow people are actually time travelers.
Yeah.
Yes. So the idea is that, like, these people are coming from the future, and we're so advanced in the future, able to time travel, but they know that if they were to come to us in like their futuristic outfits, whatever they're wearing, that people would freak out.
Right.
So they're able to cloak themselves in a way in darkness.
So they decided to not be scary.
Yeah, what the fuck?
They would just cloak themselves in darkness and suck on your fear glands.
Yeah, exactly. So let's actually, I was trying to be a little like kind of nice about it. I think that the idea that it's time travel, I'm not on board.
Right.
An interesting thought.
I'd rather see a futuristic person wearing like a suit made of like light rather than just a shadowy asshole.
Yeah, that sounds so fucking scary.
Unless that just means whatever they really look like
is worse.
Really sucks.
Yeah. But like, if they have the, the ability and the scientific know-how to be able to time travel, like, I feel like they would be able to like cover themselves up in something that's like more normal.
Get a stylist.
Get a stylist.
Get an interdimensional stylist.
I swear to God, if you don't try Stitch Fix, I'll freak out.
Maybe a sponsor someday.
I would Stitch Fix if you're listening.
I love that.
We would love to
we'd love
collab.
We'd love to collab.
But so those are two things. Oh yeah, also the astral projecting. I think that's interesting. I'm not necessarily totally on board for that.
Right.
But I think that's very cool.
Right. Not that we think that that's bullshit. It's just that in our heart, because obviously who knows what these things are. Everyone has a different, I mean, really, everyone's personal theory is what just feels right in their heart, I find most of the time. And that's what it is. I mean, you just you find what feels right inside of you, and that's your explanation. Until the day comes we know the truth. It's, you kind of have to just let it sit how you want it to sit in your own mind.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, I think that is all very important to note. And like your gut is a really important thing to go off of.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and then really quick, I also wanted to say, I should have said this earlier, but ghosts and shadow people are different.
Yes.
That's pretty much clear across the board. Everyone's kind of agreeing with that.
Even though there's theories that they are ghosts, that it's kind of in this field, it's generally believed that that these are separate things from ghosts.
Yeah, right.
And in the future, we are going to do an episode that's all about ghost taxonomy, explaining the difference between specters, poltergeists, wraiths, you name it. But yes, so it's believed that these shadow people are a separate thing.
Right. Shadow people were never a human being alive on this earth as we know it. At least. They are their own thing, their own entity. They have always been this way.
Right. Whether that's, demonic or extraterrestrial, or I don't know, maybe even cryptid. I don't think this would fall cryptid, but it's in, something outside of that ghost arena.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, just to keep you updated, cryptid is a being that is, how would you describe? I mean,
cryptids are essentially, legendary creatures like Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot, the Jersey Devil. Creatures generally believed to be of even if they have some magical powers, generally believed to be of some sort of a fleshy material that they are carbon based.
Right.
Beings, essentially, is from what I understand.
Right, exactly. Okay, so shadow people, like I said, they have been around forever. Mm-hmm. But the term shadow people really blew up because of Art Bell's radio show called Coast to Coast.
Absolutely.
Where basically he has a bunch of people call in and they talk about things that we like to talk about, just things weird, unexplainable, unbelievable, but maybe believable things. Right.
It may be the greatest radio show of all time. I'm assuming people who are seeking out our podcast are probably very familiar with Art Bell, but I mean, in case you aren't, I mean, go to YouTube, look up old clips. The man was just wonderful.
Right. So that is something that I think is important to note, and that is what really kind of brought this into the 20th century for a lot of people, and made it real to them. And that was the first time they had really heard it in a modern context.
Right.
And what people often describe seeing is out of the corner of their eye, a darker, blacker than black shadow that has a clear shadow. Sometimes people say it's kind of like more of like a black mass that's fuzzy, but for the most part it's a pretty clear shadow. And oftentimes it's a man with a hat on, like a wide brim hat or a fedora or something like that.
Right. It's like a formless Dick Tracy.
Right, exactly. And something that I think is cool is that a lot of the people who had made claims to seeing these shadow people in the past before Coast to Coast and Art Bell, they explained it in kind of a different way. There wasn't so much of that wide brim hat. A lot of it was more of like a cloak over their head or something like that, which I think is interesting. Like these things are trying to blend in a way.
Absolutely.
Like in the 20th century, men just like wore hats more.
Absolutely.
So I think they're like, oh, we're like of this time.
Right. It's a general, it's like this thing of like, if we know that if you were trying to blend into say 2020, you wouldn't wear that because it's not the 1950s. But that's why it feels like if they were like extraterrestrials or one thing, they just kind of have a general idea of modern culture,
right?
Whether of the last maybe 80 years, and so they just kind of just throw a dart at a board and say, I'm going to go with that look,
right?
But something that's also granted, this is not as common. Mostly they are that featureless black silhouette humanoid figure. But sometimes there's been reports of eyes.
Yes.
Often red, glowing eyes or blue. These sort of these glowing orbs in this black,
which is fucking scary.
Absolutely terrifying.
Like I cannot imagine.
That's absolutely horrifying. And what sucks is because this happens a lot while people are in bed, it's so easy for people to dismiss it as you had a nightmare, which I'm sorry, I feel like I know the difference. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I feel like I would know the difference between a nightmare.
Right.
And, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just haven't had a nightmare that's vivid enough. I feel like I have.
Yeah.
But that's just, I find such a dismissive thing to just say you were dreaming. But
well, it's so odd because every time that I dream, in the back of my head, I always know that I'm in a dream.
Right.
Always. I am never, and maybe that's weird. I
Right.
don't know, but
Well,
I always know.
Even when you're actively in it?
Yes.
Oh, really? Sometimes I don't know until I wake up, but the second I wake up, I know I was dreaming.
Right.
I don't I would not. I've never had one that was so real that later in the day I'm still telling people that this thing happened to me. I know once I wake up that I had, a dream.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have? It's so hard with stories like this with. Because we've all seen a shadow in the corner of our eye.
Right.
But it's more than just that. There are some very compelling personal stories that are absolutely frightening.
Yeah, and we have a couple that we're going to get into here. Yeah. But first, I just wanted to kind of get more into the sleep paralysis.
Please. Yes.
So, what the difference between seeing a shadow person in your day-to-day, for example, kind of more of what we were talking about, and seeing one while you're experiencing sleep paralysis is a lot of times people say that the shadow figure or the shadow person actually does approach them and physically touches them.
Right.
And sometimes even climbs on top of their chest.
Yes.
And they have a really, really the people feeling it have a really hard time breathing, which is so horrifying.
It's once again, think of it like they want that hit of fear and they're just juicing you like an orange.
Right.
They're just squeezing you, trying to get every drop they can. They won't kill you.
Right.
But they're just trying to get that hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what I think is so cool and scary about this is that it's like so many people that have experienced sleep paralysis also experience this shadow person or this demon. There are different words for it in every language, not every language, but well, maybe, I don't know, in lots of the different languages at least,
right.
Where like this goes across cultures, it goes across everywhere, and I think that's so crazy. There's like a lot of art that we can post on our website or social media of demons on top of people sleeping from hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, there's some very famous paintings. Ones that I don't necessarily know the name, but you would recognize them if you saw them.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Yeah, to the point. Yeah, where those are more described as demons or devils usually.
Right.
I actually also read a story online, what I feel very conflicted and bad about this whole situation, this whole vibe. But she wrote in her story that ever since she got her first period, she started experiencing like this type of stuff, sleep paralysis / shadow people / demon situation. And her story was really, I know that we're supposed to be like lighthearted here, but it was really sad because she started to feel more kind of like this thing was assaulting her, like sexually assaulting her.
Really?
Which I think is super crazy. Like, I don't want to ever go right to saying, oh, that didn't necessarily happen.
Especially, yeah.
But maybe that was something that happened with her more so in her mind because her body was changing and she felt some kind of way about it.
Right.
But at the same time, maybe
this thing was drawn to
exactly.
It's whether it was hormones or something, it was drawn to that there's something about that age when it starts, and you hear a lot about that. You hear a lot about around the age of puberty is when a lot of poltergeists, And that's another thing that will probably in future episodes that it'll be a common theme. So obviously, and that's the other thing is when you hear about that, it's so easy to dismiss it. It's so easy to say, oh well, her, she's young with a lot of hormones, her body's changed. It's so easy to write things off, and that's something we are never going to do on the show. We will never, as outlandish as things get, we will never write people off.
Right. Like I genuinely believe this could go either way. Like maybe it is some sort of thing that she, I don't know. I remember when I got my first period, I was fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Like maybe it is just she's internalizing it, or maybe this entity is taking advantage of the fact.
Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
But I would love to read some stories.
Please hit us with these stories.
Okay. So the first story I have is actually kind of a nice story, I think.
Good.
So I think this is a cool example of how shadow people can kind of be dope. Dope so.
Dope.
Okay. This is coming from a post on Thought Catalog from about 2009.
The beacon of journalism.
Exactly. In 2009. What a year. I graduated high school in 2009.
Just kidding. I'm sure Thought Catalog is great.
No. Yeah. We're just being dicks. Okay. So one night I was visiting my grandma. She lives in the middle of podunk nowhere here in the deep south. Oh, maybe the deep south. I'm not going to do an accent.
South.
I'm not good at that. A little backstory. This year, her husband died in her room, and her ex-husband also died in the hospital. Yikes, you hate to hear it. I was visiting her to keep her company and whatnot. Anyway, we were lying in bed watching The Dead Files on the Travel Channel.
Nice.
Very cool. And Amy Allen is talking about shadow people. My grandma randomly asks, "What's a shadow person?" I hate to give a note to this person, but it's not really random. You were watching the show about shadow people, so it's not random that she brought up shadow people, but
yeah.
Whatever. I gave her my best explanation, not thinking much of it. A little while later, she reveals to me that for a period of about 2 weeks, very recently, she had a shadow person visit her every night. Jeez. It would lay with her in bed and talk to her and comfort her.
And how old was she at this time? Does it say?
It doesn't say, but grandma age.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. So this shadow person was visiting the grandma.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I know there are lots of grandmas, lots of hot young grandmas out there. Right. But I get the vibe that this is more of a elderly grandma.
Right. I misunderstood. I thought it was the person telling the story was the one being visited.
Oh, sure. No.
But anyway, okay.
No, that's okay. So anyway, this shadowy person visited her grandma every single night. It would lay in bed with her and talk to her. She said it never felt scary, just kind of comforting, and everything is going to be okay type entity. She did not sense that it was my grandfather or step-grandfather.
Okay.
So I think that's very different because usually shadow people do not speak. But there have been claims that they do, and maybe this is a time that they do.
Absolutely. Wow. That's fascinating.
What a weird story.
Yeah. It's not, so that one, like you said, that one's a little more lighthearted.
Yeah, which is kind of why I wanted to read it. To say, hey, sometimes maybe these things are like not bad. I don't know.
That's what's fascinating about these things. Like we said, they aren't lethal, except they aren't. I mean, in the case of the girl who had just had her period, that's harm. That's harm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But for the most part, it sounds like these things are just kind of curious.
Right.
I mean, some, tales, they vary. Some are more malevolent, some benevolent, some are just kind of like passerbys. But that's what's fascinating. It's for being so scary, they seem relatively not weak, but just they can, like we said, they're there to get that hit. Have you ever like when you've emptied out a vape cartridge and you're still just sucking on it?
Right.
Every now and then you get a little puff, but you're just because God, you don't want to drop more money on more, so you're sucking on that cartridge.
You're sucking on it,
trying to get that steam out of there. I mean, that's what, like I said, we're just fear bongs to these.
We're fear bongs. We're human jewels.
We're human fruits just getting squeezed out for our sweet little breakfast juices.
Nasty and sexual. I love it. But I think though this story kind of nails in my at least my personal opinion on the matter, that I do think maybe the sleep paralysis. Well, no, I was gonna say that the sleep paralysis shadow people are evil or have a negative energy.
Right.
But there have been claims that sometimes they're just like sitting there.
Right.
So I think there's just two different types, and maybe the malevolent.
Right. Malevolent.
Malevolent.
No, you're fine.
I think those come more often,
Right.
in the sleep paralysis world,
Right.
but not necessarily always.
Right. And just because we say they're not lethal, they're it doesn't mean they're not
Fucked up.
still bad. They're they're there because they want something from you.
Yes.
So if you think about it like that, I mean, I guess that's maybe the best way to look at it. If these are things you're scared of, maybe the best way to look at it is they're there because they need something.
Right.
If you think about it, they're there because you have something they need, and then
Right.
they like cockroaches. They scatter off into the dark when the lights get flipped on. It's
Right.
so I mean, obviously, I haven't well, I don't know.
Okay. See, this is the exciting. Because I also have kind of a story too.
I almost said I haven't had any experience, but there was one time in particular I'm not sure. When we'll get to that later
Okay.
on, but let's
I just have
do
one more
story.
story.
Is this one a little more bump in the night?
A little bit more bump in the night.
Okay,
a
here
little
we
bit
go.
more. This one is, I'll be honest with you. This one isn't horrifying. This isn't going to make your skin crawl, but maybe it will actually. But the super super scary stories, we've kind of touched on, but this one is very interesting. Okay. When I was in 7th grade, I was standing at the bus stop early in the morning, still dark outside. I fucking hated waiting for the bus, by the way. I only had to do it a couple times because I freaked out.
You talking about for the school bus?
Yes.
I rarely ever,
like as a child.
I rarely ever took it to school, but I did quite often take it home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really even remember what happened, but I didn't take it until we moved when I was in 7th grade, and we were going to no, or maybe was it? No, I think that's what it was. And then I was going to take it to school then, and something, I literally don't know what happened. I like blocked it out. But I think someone must have like fucking was like mean to me or something on the bus. And so I didn't want to go back on the bus, and I felt so bad about it that my mom had paid for me to take the bus all year that I bought my own lunch all year long, and I never told her.
You had to pay to get on the school bus?
I think you had to like pay a fee to like for the bus to like come to your house and everything.
Well, granted, you grew up in Chicago.
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
I'm from a very small Michigan town, so you just hopped on that rusty yellow bus. Hopefully you had your tetanus shot.
Yeah.
You went to your little country school and
pray to your God.
Hit each other with sticks on the playground and learn how to do some math, and that was it.
And that's school, folks.
That's school,
That's
folks.
school. Anyway, that was a tangent about buses.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, back to it. The bus stop was somewhat under a street lamp. It would cast your shadow onto the house in front of the stop. I still to this day can't explain what I saw. I was standing there, normally the only person at this particular stop, when I see the shadow of a person walking towards me. I didn't think anything about it. It was a school bus stop after all. All of a sudden, while I'm watching this shadow of this quote-unquote person approach me, the shadow just stops walking. Curious, I looked around for signs of someone, saw absolutely no one. I turned back to look at the shadow, and then it drops to all 4 legs and takes off running full sprint right past me. Thus, just then, it disappeared without a trace.
Almost like galloping?
Yes.
Like a dog or like a horse or
yes,
something?
And when I was doing research for this episode, this is not the only time I have heard about a shadow person getting on all 4s and like running like an animal.
That's weird. That's freaky.
That scares me.
That's a thing I hadn't heard of.
I hadn't really until I was really like sitting down to research this episode.
That's weird because that just further exemplifies the theory that these things are disguising themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
That's creepy.
I also saw a very funny.
So maybe a shadowy silhouette is less frightening than whatever these fuckers are.
Right?
Yeah. Oh God, that's bad.
Oh, it really scared me. And there was a guy. I was on Reddit looking through stories, and one person wrote a story, a kind of I'm sure very very scary, but it kind of run of the mill, your classic shadow person story.
Right.
And someone just comments on it, being like, no, I have debunked the shadow people. It is actually a jinn, because a jinn can never show you its real form or something like that.
Well, I'm glad he
figured it
found a
out.
rational explanation for this. It was just a djinn. It was just a djinn, guys.
I love when people are like, no, I've debunked it. I have nailed it.
Right. I love it when someone debunks it with something else that is
That you're like, okay.
It's not like, oh, well, it was the breeze. It wasn't a ghost. It was a genie.
Right.
As if somehow that's more, oh, you're right. What was I thinking?
Exactly.
A djinn.
Yeah.
Stupid me.
It was a djinn. And we'll get, by the way, we'll
get to
get
djinn.
into djinn
Fascinating
later.
creatures. Fascinating.
Yes, very cool. But okay, so now that we've told the stories that I've prepared, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Do you have like an experience?
Well, it's funny because as I was about to say I had never had experience, I was reminded that
That's so weird.
I just remember, this is not as who knows what this was. Maybe it was a shadow person, maybe it wasn't. But I just remember, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I remember, I'm trying to remember, because I have not thought about this in a while.
And that seems to be a thing that people say. Like they see not always, but sometimes they'll see something and then it just kind of like, you don't think about it, which is so odd.
Yeah, I know you're not a Doctor Who person, but I just remember there's these really creepy, I can't remember what they're called. They were called like this, but there was these creepy aliens they look like Slender Man, which is obviously.
We'll pop off into that too.
Yeah, we'll do an episode on that very soon. But they kind of look like Slender Man, and they're terrifying, but the second you look away, you forget you saw them. It's
so weird.
It's such a great idea.
Oh, that is a great idea.
I can't remember what they're called in the show, but yes, I just remember those aliens were the creepiest, but it was like the coolest idea of like, the second you look away, you forget. No matter how terrified you are, you turn and you just all of a sudden. But yeah, so what? I mean, obviously not like that, but I can't remember. I think it was at the foot of the bed.
Oh my God, this is so scary.
And I remember. Yeah, I sat up and shouted. And the person I was seeing at the time quickly turned the lights on, and I shouted. In fact, I kept shouting for a bit. Like, I don't know. So whether it was, I don't remember having a dream. In fact, and here's the thing. I'm trying to think back. So who knows? So this is not gospel. I just remember.
Right.
Seeing the bed, which is why I don't think I was dreaming, because I saw the bed, which obviously I could dream the bed. And then I don't know if I thought there was something leaning over the foot of the bed or if it was just standing at the foot of the bed. But I remember I started shouting and my ex quickly turned on the light and there was nothing there. But I remember I just was looking around the room and I remember just saying, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" Like I was tearing through the room, and she was like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh, so
And
weird.
finally, I just was able to go back to sleep. But yeah, so I guess that's God. Now that I'm telling it, it's like, how the hell did I forget that?
That's the thing. A lot of this stuff just does not make logical sense, and you just have to kind of like surrender. At least, in my opinion, you kind of just have to surrender yourself to that.
And folks, I'm obviously I have no idea if I saw a shadow person. I was just who knows? But but yes, that's the closest thing I have. How about you?
Yeah. Well, really quick before I tell my story, something that I meant to say before is that a lot of people, as we've said many times, think that these are just hallucinations or you're kind of in dream state still, or some people even say that maybe this is drug related, like maybe if people do drugs or they're sleep deprived, you see these things. Mm-hmm. But another thing that I kind of am interested in is not that these things aren't there and you're experiencing them in a dream. It's maybe because you're in that kind of weird limbo state between dream and sleep that your brain is in a place where it can receive these things.
So that's a theory you're going to see pop up a lot in a lot of future episodes, especially when we start talking about psychedelics and primarily DMT, which has the nickname the spirit molecule. But there's also this kind of theory going around that, the paranormal in the broader sense, whether it's shadow people or ghosts or even UFOs, alien abductions, that they are actually communicating to us through chemicals in our brain.
Right.
So technically, yeah, you're hallucinating it, but it's not you. It's you being forced to hallucinate.
Right.
So there still is. You're not wrong. These people aren't lying. That's how these things are communicating is
Yeah.
through the chemicals in our brain. So that's why someone will say, "Don't you see it?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" It's
Right.
because it's in your head, and I don't mean in your head as in you're imagining it. It's because that's how it's talking to you.
Exactly.
Through these chemicals and through your obviously the mystery that is the human mind.
Yeah, totally. And also, too, on a little bit more of a basic level, a lot of the reason why a lot of people say that kids and animals are able to sense ghosts or sense spirits, things like that, because they haven't yet been taught to not believe those things.
Right.
Or they're just so open-minded.
Right.
And yeah, I have 2 stories. And okay, so one is just in our current apartment. We haven't touched on this. Dylan and I are engaged to be married.
That's right.
we never talked about it.
We are betrothed. We are.
Yeah, so we live together, living in sin, good times. And we live on the top floor of our building. It's a walk up. And there have been a few times where I have been walking up and down those stairs that I think I see something out of the corner of my eye, something black. And I'll turn and look, and I've never seen anything. But that has happened a few times, and it's come to the point where there was one time, I think maybe I was going down to the basement to put laundry in or something, but when I was coming back up the stairs, I was so afraid. I literally ran all the way up the stairs, and I hate running, so this should really mean something. I don't know. So
The stairwell here is freaky.
it's just stairs in general weird. It's like going from this kind of place of in between,
And especially because it goes up in like a square form. Because
you
we're on
can't see. Yeah.
Right. We're on the 3rd floor, so you go up. Essentially you go up. You go up, take a right. You circle around. You go. So it's you're walking up like squares essentially.
Right.
And what's obviously this is not obviously this does not explain what you've experienced, but I know there's sometimes I don't know if there's a slight echo, but obviously when you're walking up the stairs sometimes they'll creak.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a slight echo with this creak, because sometimes you'll be walking, it'll sound like there's a second pair of like someone else is walking up the stairs, and then you'll stop and it'll stop. Creepy.
It's very
creepy
weird.
stuff. It's obviously not to say that's what you were experiencing.
No, yeah.
But yeah, it's just stairs are just guys. Stairs.
Am I right?
Stairs, man.
Stair talk.
Stair talk. Get real.
That's our next podcast.
It's
stair talk.
Get ready for a 5-part series on stairs.
On stairs, just stairs,
Just like how they're crafted.
step by step.
Yeah.
Great show, by the way. I don't know if you remember that show. But so this is now I have a story that's a little bit more concrete. I have more experience with it.
Here we go. Some hard science. Hard.
So yeah,
facts.
I have some facts here. Some facts and figures.
Spit the truth.
I love spitting truth. So, so the house that my mom lived in kind of like my college years, was this house in a suburb called Northfield, and it was a 1-story ranch style house, and the people that had been living there before us had been living there for a really, really long time.
Right.
It was a couple, and I think they did have kids that had lived there, but they were grown and out of the house. But so anyway, that's kind of just the background that we knew of the house. That was kind of it. Every now and then we would get this really weird smell throughout the house, and we're like, this is very odd. It didn't really seem to be coming from anywhere in particular, and it didn't necessarily smell bad, but it also didn't really smell good. It just was kind of this odd smell that I've never smelled before or since.
Is there anything you can describe it? If you can't, that's fine.
I mean, I don't know how helpful this is, but I can describe what it didn't smell like. It didn't smell like rotting. It didn't smell like food. It didn't smell dirty.
So it didn't smell earthy, like dirt or soil, or do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It was more of, I guess I could maybe earthy. I guess I could say that. When I said it didn't smell dirty, I didn't mean literally dirt. I meant just unclean is what I meant. So yeah, I guess I could see kind of like an earthy smell, I guess.
Right.
I guess that could possibly be it.
Right.
But then one day I think it was my mom went into our attic for some reason, And it was one of those attics you have to pull the thing down from the ceiling and the ladder comes down. So it's not somewhere we would it's kind of a pain in the ass to get up there. So we weren't going up there all the time.
Right.
But my mom found a notebook up there and a like gallon-sized Ziploc bag full of cassette tapes. And we read through the book, and the woman of the house, the wife, had been keeping copious notes on her husband about every single thing that she did and was saying how much she hated.
Oh, I remember you telling me this.
Yes.
That's
And I immediately just got like the worst feeling in my stomach. I felt so scared by this. And I was like, oh, this is so weird. And we never listened to the cassette tapes, mainly because we didn't have a way to listen to it.
Right. Were they just like just cassettes?
Yeah.
Like just, yeah.
So,
Wow.
like we could have,
Right.
but
But
we
it's-
could have, I could have gone to, a thrift store and bought a tape player, but we just felt really weird about it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't as brave as I am now about
Well,
the paranormal. Even now, I don't know if I would have, but
Well,
at the
it's-
time I really wasn't. So I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not messing with this. But so that's kind of the background for it. But the whole time that my mom lived there, it was about like 5 years or so. And I lived there I was there always during breaks in school. And then I lived there for about like a year.
Right.
And I would always think I would see a cat in the house.
Wow.
Yeah, and at first I thought we used to have a cat in the house that I had lived in when I was in high school. We had a cat.
Right.
So at first I thought maybe I'm just kind of used to seeing a cat around. So once something just kind of like rustles in the wind or whatever, I just go to cat.
Right.
But then this kept going on for literally the whole time that my mom lived there. Wow. And I have thought that a couple times since then, since I haven't, I don't know who lives there now. Every now and then when I'm just somewhere else, sometimes I'll think I'll see a cat. And then when I look, it's not there. But it happened all the time at my mom's old house, especially in my room, like right near my bed. I noticed it a lot. Or
Right.
sometimes in the living room, if I was sitting on the couch, I would notice it. And then I would look and then it wasn't there.
Would it just be like on the couch with you, or like
No, it was always on the ground,
always on the ground?
like walking somewhere.
Oh, so it would be moving.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
And kind of similar to what people have said in other stories is like a part of the reason why I never was scared was because I was always kind of like, maybe my eyes are just playing tricks on me. Like there's no reason to take this seriously.
Right.
But then the other part of me was like, I just didn't get a feeling of fear.
Right.
Like I just was like, I just wasn't worried about it.
Right.
And that's also kind of how I felt about the weird smell in the house.
Yeah.
It never, and it wasn't just me. Everyone in my family noticed it, and even sometimes people who came over noticed it. And it wasn't because it wasn't all the time. It just never, I didn't get a feeling like deep in my gut that this was scary.
Right.
So really that that notebook and the cassettes were the only thing that scared me. But everything else wasn't scary.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's something. So, black shadow cats, Hat Man, and Old Hag are the three
Yes,
most
the Old Hag,
common
yeah.
shadow figure tropes that you hear. But sometimes people say they see children. Sometimes they see red eyes, white eyes, green eyes. There's lots of variations, but those three are the kind of the big hitters, if you will.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Shadow People.
The Shadow People for Creep Street.
Absolutely. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this inaugural episode. Please, we have a Twitter. I think it's Creep Street Pod at Creep Street Pod. Find our Facebook, Creep Street Podcast. We have an Instagram. Find us on Twitter. Yes, please. We are in the process of building this thing, and we want to make it big, and we want to do it right, and we're going to do that with all of you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe. If you could rate, a 5-star rating would always be apprecited. And tell your friends, tell that weird friend of yours that likes weird shit.
Absolutely. Give it a subscribe, give it a rating, hopefully 5 stars. And but yes, thank you so much. And believe us, we are going to go to some very weird and exciting places. So stick with us. Thank you all so much. And citizens of the Milky Way, good night and goodbye.